peace must be our goal and our guide. And all that we strive for as a human family, dignity and hope, progress and prosperity, depends on peace. But peace depends on us.
Very good morning to you, and thank you so much for finding time to being with us. This is the People's Court, where we get to have topical issues and topical discussions on things that are of national importance and concerns the many Kenyans and indeed Africa and the world. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Miriam Ogutu, and joining me on the panel this morning I have Samuel Tawish. Tawish, good morning to you.
Good morning to you, Miriam Ogutu. Good morning to my colleague panelist, Sharon Gitonga. It's a great pleasure to have me on board on this program, The People's Court. Good morning, Miriam.
All right, good morning. And we do have also Sharon Gitonga. Sharon, a very good morning to you.
A very good morning to you, Miriam Ogutu, at the headquarters, my co-panelist, Tawish, and to all our viewers watching us across the board. It's a pleasure to be part of the People's Court conversation. Good morning.
All right, good morning, and thank you so much. So our topic this morning is curbing electoral violence, and because there's a story I saw on the Star newspaper, page 2, and the title is Police, Why Securing 2022 Polls Will Be an Uphill Task. From early campaigns to organized criminal gangs patronized by politicians, police are facing an uphill task in securing next year's polls. The National Police Service has said politicians have roped in networks of rowdy border rider groups and secret criminal gangs to not only enlist them in campaigns but also use them to terrorize their opponents and hostile voting populations. Commissioner of Police Dominic Kisavi yesterday recounted the numerous hurdles the service was facing as it ponders multi-pronged preparations to secure the general elections. He represented Police Inspector General Hilary Mutyambai in a webinar hosted by International Commission of Jurists Kenyan chapter on election preparedness. The forum was attended by, they've put all the people that attended this forum. They shall not go too much into, that story, but just reading through part of that, Samuel Tawish, what's your reaction?
Thank you so much, Miriam, and thank you for that question. I think the police are likely also to blame in as far as the environment of political intolerance is concerned. Because, Miriam, you cannot understand why the police or the relevant agencies cannot or will not have taken action to whichever kind of organized groups, because by the time the police come and own up that they are organized groups, at least they have intel information to that effect. And therefore, the question Kenyans would be asking is, if the police indeed have any information to the effect that there are politicians who are organizing criminal gangs or criminal groups ready to terrorize their opponents or to make it difficult for politicians to carry out with their political activities, or even to curtail the freedom of association by other political opponents, then what is it that bars or hinders the police from taking action on such criminal activities or criminal gangs? I mean, it's as basic as that. They have the arsenals. They have, of course, they have everything at their disposal to be able to deal with such criminal gangs or criminal politicians who are perpetuating such kind of intolerances that we are witnessing. But again, on the very pertinent question as to that the police may not necessarily be prepared enough, or they are not ready to tackle any kind of, say, flare-ups that will be coming up. I think President Kenyatta, and through the Ministry of Interior, must be in a position really to equip the police, to equip all our security apparatus and agencies to make sure that as we head into 2022 general election, before, during, and after the election, that nothing will impose or rather pose a challenge or security challenge or pose a security risk to the people of Kenya, simply because politicians are intolerant to each other, or simply because politicians will want to cause violence if the election will not go their way, or if the results of the election will not favor them. So I think the police must come out and make necessary arrangements, necessary adjustments to understand that we are going into, already we are in a volatile political situation. The temperatures are rising. The people are becoming intolerant each and every elapsing day. You've seen the likes of Jimmy Wanjigi last time he was being stoned. I think, was it in Migori County, if I'm not very wrong. You've seen that happen with other political leaders, especially when they go to what is perceived not to be their strongholds. So the police must be able to equip themselves and make sure that they have the capacity to deal with any kind of situation that will pose a risk or a threat to the security of the nation in as far as elections are concerned, Miriam.
Okay, thank you so much. And we're looking at electoral violence, and we know that Kenya's political culture had certainly for a long time been more violent compared to any other country that we know here in East Africa. Of course, Uganda, we've seen, also having such in the recent past, and also Tanzania has been dropped in this electoral violence. But certainly Kenya, we've seen even the lengths this has gone to affect our country. So now the police, National Police Service, is saying politicians have roped in networks of rowdy border rider groups and secret criminal gangs to not only enlist them in campaigns and also use them to terrorize their opponents and hostile voting populations. So it appears the police already has some intelligence and some of these activities, and this is not the first time the police is disclosing such kind of information. And I think you've asked a very good question there. If these people are known, I think the similar way we talk about corruption here and other things that plague this country, and there are people who are known, and we speak and people know, but they still walk away, walk in the streets very free. There's no conviction, there's nothing. And so has this gone on to give them the strength to work in impunity, even as they incite the members of the public towards causing violence, especially during this period of elections, Sharon? Why do we still have them walking around as they're known?
Thank you. Thank you very much, Miriam, for that question, and Tawish for your sentiments. And indeed, my sentiments are also in line with just what you have echoed. And my question is also, why don't we have, these culprits brought to book and have action being taken against them? Because it's clear that they already have the information, and unless, this leaves us wondering, are they working hand in hand with the culprits, or why are they not able to bring up these culprits to book and having an action being taken against? We have peace and stability, not just now, even during and also after election. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. So the Commissioner of Police, Dominic Kisavi, of course, said that the preliminary monitoring the service has done, border rider groups are among the potent powder kegs that could prove explosive if not well managed. We have seen border riders being hired by politicians in large groups to participate in the activities. Some of them are readily available agents of violence, and border and the increase of them in a lot of urban areas. There are those who are in that business legitimately to earn a living, but there are a few characters that have really been associated with a lot of insecurities that is being experienced in the different places in this country. So the issue of border being used, and we've seen even how the recent packaging of messages by the politicians seems to target them, and this has given this group a space in the Kenyan politics. We can't wish them away for whatever reason, and according to the police, they're saying they could be easily be guns for hire of agents to cause violence if not properly utilized. So how can the state handle this matter?
Miriam, you and I, and of course my colleague panelist Sharon Gitonga, understand it too well, that politicians many at times take the advantage of the vulnerability of our young people, the youth, especially those from the less privileged backgrounds, those who do not have, who do not have a very sound source of living, like you will equate with, of course, the middle income earners. And that is why you see even the politicians and the kind of narratives they are running there. For example, Deputy President's hustler narrative, the Wilbaronomics politics. I mean, he's been whipping the border borders, and every time you hear him speak, is more of the border borders, the mama mbogas, the mkokoteni pushers, because he knows these are people you can quite micromanage, people whom you can easily compromise. If you give them something small because they do not have them, you can easily use them for whatever purpose you want. And that is why you see the police have already identified such groups as the most vulnerable, and the ones the politicians are actually targeting for their own use. And this is very unfortunate, because again, we want to see politicians come out and empower such kind of groups, be it the border borders, be it the mama mbogas, be it the mkokoteni pushers, be it the people who have come from university or colleges, but they do not have, of course, jobs. We want to see an empowerment program, an initiative that is, of course, one which is going to last, which is sustainable in a way, Miriam, not the one which is of handouts, the one which appears to be giving immediate remedy to the problems that people are facing. We need solutions that are for posterity, one which are going to be entrenched in our constitutions, one which are not going to be dictated by the goodwill of those who are in power or the policy makers. Miriam, it is indeed unfortunate that politicians have identified these vulnerable groups and they are misusing it for their own selfish political ambitions. This is very, very unfortunate. But again, I think not so much has been lost. We are not overtaken by time. There's still so much that the government can do to see into it how these groups can really be sensitized. It's not a matter of just going and stopping them and telling them not to be misused by politicians, but we need a thorough sensitization program within which or upon which these vulnerable groups can understand that government has an elaborate plan to address their needs, to address their concerns, to see into it how they can be tapped to be beneficiaries and contributors of the growth of our economy, other than what we are seeing today as a handout politics, because that is what is posing a very big danger. You can imagine a person who struggles to get, say, 300 or 200 shillings a day, and a politician comes and gives them, say, 500 or 1,000 shillings. These people will be able to do anything to their opponent, or do anything that they would have been assigned to do. So in itself, it's a very a dangerous kind of pattern or trend if we are not careful, and it is very encouraging that the police have identified this as one of the loopholes that could cause flare-ups as we head into 2022 general election. So the best way forward will be, how is it, or what is the preparedness of the police service in ensuring that these vulnerable groups are not going to be misused or exploited by the politicians, or wrong politicians, if I should be particular, for their own selfish missions, Miriam.
Okay, thank you. Sharon, not Sharon Tawish, but Sharon Gitonga, sorry, Samuel Sharon. Okay. Sharon, a couple of issues that Tawish has brought up, and indeed, I think in the past, the country and indeed the police have been caught off guard, but there seems to be some level of, alertness in the forces, and to know and to map up problem at places that seems to have potential for any form of electoral violence. But when it comes to the issue of border riders, we see they are all over the country. I don't know if there's any place where borders are, and especially in these urban centers where they're used as the easiest and cheapest means of transport from point A to B. So they've become a favorite to many Kenyans. So, and also we've seen conversations and campaign material or campaign around these people that has elevated them to a national platform. And now we have to talk about the border riders and mama mbogas and things like that, which is not bad. I think they represent a huge number of Kenyans out there. But in that regard also, it has sort of we've seen incidences where even when a car, for instance, by mistake gets into an accident with a border, you'll see a swarm of them come in there and attack because they feel you are hitting this guy because you feel you are the dynasty and all that. We've had such incidences happening before, but also they have the potential of being used by our political class, even as to advance their own selfish, agendas there, as we've seen the police now come out to sound that alarm there. So is there a way that perhaps the government and our police and our security agents can prepare in good time and can take precautions so that these things that are, these symptoms that we see right now do not, culminate to something much bigger in form of violence towards the electioneering, year or next year towards the election?
Thank you very much, Miriam. I think for the police, it's high time, they stop just talking and take action, because in itself, such statements already, create and instill so much fear to especially now that we are headed towards the election. And I think until we are able to see change or rather action being taken to, the responsible, politicians, because as it said, they already know the people. So I think they should, just stop talking too much and take an action, so that even, people are going to create, a system of trust, especially now that you're headed towards election. But then again, I also feel sensitization goes hand in hand, and I don't know why I feel like IEBC has maybe failed somewhere, by failing to give civic education to these boda riders, or the youths, because I believe that is where the biggest, it comprises of the youths. Why they should also sensitize these people as to why they vote, because some of them don't even know why they vote. They just vote, for a certain pushed narrative, or based on a certain party that people are talking about, and not the ideological. So once we have all these people being sensitized, and rather they use the youth specifically, will be maybe it's going to change the narrative. It's going to change the narrative on the same.
All right. Thank you for that. Yes, indeed. And we've seen, like in the case of when the recent skirmishes in Laikipia, where now we were forced, the government was forced to take the National Army there. And since the KDF landed in Laikipia, we've not heard any new skirmishes. We've not heard any new, cases of insecurity, or people trying to be removed from their homes and things like that. So, but during that time, even the Rift Valley Commissioner came out and said these people are known who instigate these kinds of conflicts and violence. So if these people are known, is it about time, Sharon, as you've said, we just stop talking, but we walk the walk? If you're known and there's a credible evidence that you're involved in such acts, like in the case of now the police is saying politicians use these border guys and other groups, including the youth and whatnot, how about now we just stop saying we know these people and do something about the people we already know are involved? And this perhaps can act as a deterrent, Tawish?
Well, Miriam, indeed, it's a very genuine and legitimate concern that if the police indeed are aware of the individuals perpetuating these acts of intolerance, these acts of violence in the country, how come that they're not taking action? It's a very delicate matter which must be handled with the sensitivity that it dictates. Because again, Miriam, you cannot just wake up today and say you want to rain on these individuals, each and every of them. More so if you are to look into the situation that is happening in Laikipia. When the security apparatus come out and say that the politicians are the one who are at the forefront or are the perpetrators of what is happening there. Remember, there are so many interests at play, and you cannot just go there and arrest each and every of the politicians, assuming it's the governors plus their senators plus their members of parliament. There are a lot of interests that are being involved to a point that you need to meticulously see how you're going to handle this situation without making it even worse. You remember during the Westgate terror attack, was it somewhere in 2011? I mean, there was a delicate balance between saving the hostages inside there and dealing or actually eliminating the people who are holding people hostages, or the terrorists, if I should put it that way. So it is kind of a delicate situation, because at the same time you want to apprehend or even kill these terrorists, but at the same time you have to understand that there are people who are held hostage inside here. So how do you balance the two interests without harming the other? It is the same situation we are having, for instance, in Laikipia, that maybe you have politicians who have big networks, who have big interests, who have huge followings, whom you cannot just go and arrest each and every of them unless you want to worsen the situation. So police and most of the intelligence know it too well how to deal with such kind of situations. And that is why you see when we have not been on much of talking in as far as the Laikipia case is concerned, you've seen there's some semblance of peace and tranquility slowly returning to that particular region, because the police know it too well how to pacify such kind of situations. And as we can speak, of course, the peace and stability is returning, albeit slowly. Miriam, I think it is the same situation with what we are talking about as we are heading into 2022 general election, that we have vulnerable groups. You talk about the borders, they are in hundreds of thousands, if not millions, as we speak today in this country. And in itself, it's an interest groups. It is an interested constituency. In which case, if you're not going to deal with it with a lot of care, to deal with it with a lot of sensitivity, then you may end up, of course, making matters worse. And I think that is what the police are doing. But they are doing this by giving these warning shots. I think it is going to take the politicians or those who are perpetrating or misusing the youth, especially those who do not have the jobs, that maybe their days are numbered, that maybe the police are on the watch out. I think it is just a warning shot, but it does not portend that the police are not quite prepared to deal with any situation or any insecurity that will be posed by virtue of politicians who want to perpetrate violence and intolerance against their political opponents as we head into 2022 general election, Miriam.
Mm-hmm. And I'm sure, as you mentioned, we know there are so many of these border riders across the country. Is there a way that we could bring sanity to this sector, some form of regulation? I know there's a bit of that, but how best can this sector be regulated, Tawish, before I go on to Sharon? Okay, Tawish did not get that, but Sharon, you could go ahead.
I think the major thing, just like I mentioned, if we can have a sensitization program to specifically these border riders, to educate them on such matters, I think this would go really a long way.
All right. Now, proscribed gangs such like Mungiki, Jeshi la Mzee, Chinkororo, among others, have been used in previous elections by politicians. Police have also recently said that some unnamed politicians were out to revive such lethal groups. Tawish.
Miriam, when you mention about the Mungiki, when you mention about the Chinkoro, when you mention about the Jeshi la Mzee or Wazee, whichever names you want to give them, these are illegal groupings which must be dealt with by relevant agencies, authorities, if you like. I don't think that it is quite good for the police or for the intelligence to come and tell us, of course, the existence of these groups. We want to see them we want to see how they are going to deal with such groups, because these are elements that we understand from history have caused us havoc in the past. More so if you remind yourself about the 2007-2008 post-poll skirmishes. I mean, it was slightly attributed. You can understand, of course, the contribution or the kind of havoc or destruction that the Mungiki did cause in this country and in most parts of Rift Valley and Nairobi. Miriam, these are not scenes that we want to see repeated. I think what we need to do is to ask ourselves, how come that over 13 or so years since we had the very serious post-poll skirmishes in 2007-2008, that nothing has been achieved in as far as integrating these illegal groups into our society, so that at least they can get a new baptism, to understand exactly how come that they got of course, recruited in those illegal groupings? Is it because they do not have jobs? Is it because there are matters they want addressed that government has not addressed? Because if we leave it unattended, Miriam, then we will not have a country to call home. I think it is important. The Chikoro you're talking about, I think they range from Kisii region, if I'm not very wrong. The Mungiki mostly drawn from the central Kenya region. The Jeshi la Wazee, the Lamzee, I'm not very sure where they come from. But again, all these illegal groupings, the police, the intelligence have reports on how they are actually operating, and they also have the arsenals and resources to be able to deal with these groups. So I don't think that it is good for them to continue allowing these illegal groups to exist, because by the end of the day, Kenyans will pay the ultimate price if, for example, we'll have the kind of situation we had in 2007, 2008. Who knows, perhaps, Miriam, in 2022, maybe things might get worse. Maybe these illegal groupings are even more organized than they were in 2007 and 2008. Could be they have even gotten more sophisticated weapons than what it were in 2007, 2008. So I think the police should move in swiftly and be able to nab these groups, be able to deal with them decisively, so that we do not have such kind of intolerances, such kind of criminal activities being perpetuated by individuals who do not want to exhibit a level of tolerance when it comes to political contestation. Miriam, I submit.
All right, thank you so much. And perhaps maybe even in our electoral laws, I don't know if you have such a clause that states if a politician has been mentioned or has been found to be promoting and perpetrating electoral violence, they should be disqualified and they should not be allowed to run ever in any elective seat. Maybe that will help, but we will need the same politicians to craft such laws. Do you think that could be punitive enough also as a way to, a deterrent, Sharon, as we conclude the show?
Yeah, I think if we can have, such laws, it's going to really go a long way, because I don't understand the issue like of Mungiki, because having, I come from Central and I've heard about Mungiki over and over and over. But I don't know, it's high time, these security agencies, walk the talk, because I believe there's no one who is above the law. They should, put the culprits to book, because I'm sure most of us, we can read between the lines. So I believe they have all the muscle, they have all the information that they have. They should bring these culprits to book, and if possible, if we can have the said candidates that are behind the illegal groups being disqualified, I think we are going to be in a better place. Otherwise, if we keep on doing things the same way, then clearly we are not going to get any different results.
All right. Thank you so much. Now, it is true that the 1992 and 1997 elections led to the post-election violence that we saw in 2007, 2008, but they were never perceived to have characteristics of a civil war as we saw happen. The nation and the state did not seem to be in contention during those electoral violence. Now, the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights report showed that in 2002, 325 Kenyans lost their lives in political tension. The conflagration of violence that Kenya experienced between December 2007 and March 2008, of course, was surprising to the country, especially because Kenya was viewed as one growing democracy and successful democracy in the region, especially after having just came from the election in 2002, political transition that we saw Kibaki, the former president, replacing Moi. And so after that, the fears were real already in 2012 and early 2013. Intercommunal clashes in parts of Kenya claimed about 477 lives. Another 118,000 people had been displaced. So when you look at such figures, these are people's lives and Kenyans' lives which are endangered anytime we do have such spates of violence that are brought about by our elections, and especially fueled by our politicians. Samuel Tawish, is there anything else you'd like to add to that before we close the show?
Miriam, I think as a bottom line is that we should not wait for the police really to come out and issue warnings to the political players or even to the supporters of respective political parties and political players. It is incumbent upon us, the ordinary wananchi, really to understand that which is good for the nation, that which is good for the posterity of this nation. Because again, when we involve ourselves, or if we permit ourselves to be misused by politicians, then by the end of the day, we will not have a country to call home. This is something that lies squarely on our hands. The peace and stability we enjoy today begins and ends with us. Of course, the police are just there to help us achieve the ultimate objective of having a very peaceful and a country of tranquility. But again, there's a role and obligation and a responsibility that the ordinary wananchi do play. Away from just going and casting your vote, it is also important for you to understand why you should treat a brother and a sister, a mother, a parent, or someone who is your neighbor as just any other person, as a person whom you have lived with together the rest of your lives. I mean, nobody has ever chosen to be born Kenyan, or nobody has ever chosen to be born in a certain region or in a certain ethnicity. Maybe you can choose which political party you want to associate with, which political leader you want to associate with. But when it comes to the nationality, we are all Kenyans. When it comes to our ethnicity or our tribes, you cannot quite choose. So it is not important for us to take the advantage of this diversity really to cause animosity or to cause wars, and more often really to kill our brothers and sisters just for the sake of politicians or for the sake of political ambition. It is important for us to maintain the same and help the police where necessary to achieve this noble and ultimate objective of a stable, peaceful, and a prosperous nation. I submit, Miriam.
All right, thank you so much. And on that note, we end our show this morning. Thank you, Samuel Tawish. Thank you, Sharon Gitonga. I'll see you later here at 3 p.m. with the latest news from the continent of Africa. This has been the People's Court, and we've been looking at curbing electoral violence in the country owing to a recent revelation by the police force that indeed there are some violent activities that is being planned and perhaps will be used by our politicians. And so this is something that is serious, and I know that the authorities responsible will make the necessary arrangements to ensure that they take measures Kenyans don't get to suffer. Thank you for watching. My name is Miriam Mugutu. Bye-bye for now.
Peace must be our goal and our guide. And all that we strive for as a human family, dignity and hope, progress and prosperity, depends on peace. But peace depends on us.